Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Courage to Become podcast. This is the podcast where we leave the chaos of perfectionism behind and embrace the beauty of being unapologetically you. I'm Joe, your host and guide through the lens of human design. Today, I have a very special guest that I know you're just going to love. Jenn Peterson is here with me today, and she's an eQuest life and business coach, a shamanic Reiki master teacher, and an award-winning marketer. Jenn's soul has aligned as a life and marketing coach who teaches people how to market and sell with soul. So she goes deep in her work too. She also works with horses, which I'm looking forward to hearing about that work as well. I've had the pleasure of working with Jenn, and the mindset shifts that she's been able to bring out in me has been eye-opening for me, especially as a coach. Being an energy coach, I practice awareness all the time. I know what to watch for and what to listen for, but doing it yourself is really hard. And Jenn was able to do that for me. And I thought she'd be a great guest for the podcast. Jenn's approach to marketing comes from a different angle than I've learned in the past. She knows how to market from a space of authenticity and love, and she embodies the characteristics of who I aspire to be. So if I'm missing something, she's going to pick up on it. She's gentle and kind in her guidance, yet she knows how to get you right where you need to be. Welcome to the show, Jenn Peterson. I'm so grateful that you are here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for that beautiful introduction and reflection.
I know I introduced you, but that kind of just touches on what you actually do. And in all honesty, I stole some of that from your website. So if you can tell the audience a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, how you got here on this journey, I'd love that.
Yeah, thank you very much for asking. So I am someone who suffered from deep anxiety for most of my adult life and as a child. And what I can say about that is it did not feel very good. And I had a job where I worked in advertising and marketing. And I did that for about 20 years. And for most of that time, my body really suffered. I had, irritable bowel syndrome, acid reflux, waves of panic. And it only got worse when I became a mother. And I had suffered from postpartum anxiety. And, it just really did not feel well. And what I learned is that, when we are in a situation, maybe it's a relationship or we're in a career that's not really in alignment, our body will talk to us about that. And sometimes it will scream and tell us that we are not okay. And you only know that when you're on the other side of it, right? Most of the time you're just like, this is just the normal way I live. I just have anxiety and I have this. And we sort of identify with these things that are going on in our body as if it's just normal. And so when I think my daughter was about 3 years old, I started to do some things for myself. Like I took a writing class and I started to write a memoir. And what I noticed was I started to do things for myself again, where, before being a mom, I always did stuff for myself because it was only me. So I played softball and did all kinds of fun things. And when I became a mother, I didn't do that. I was like, oh, I need to do everything for my child and also work and all the things you need to do is to be human. And during that experience, I remembered a time when a life coach helped me with showing my body showed me that I wanted to have a baby naturally. My brain told me I wanted to be adopt a child. There's too many children out there that don't have homes, is what I was hearing from my brain. And this coach showed me using kinesiology that I actually really wanted. My body was like way stronger when I told the truth. And the truth was I wanted to have a baby, and I was married to the wrong person and he did not want to have a child. And I was, 40 years old, not necessarily the, peak of my fertility. So, I thought, oh, how is this going to happen? But I knew it was the truth. And within a year of that experience, I was pregnant with my daughter. And what what transpired was I learned I didn't have fertility. I had like a very low chance of having a child. But I kept thinking, like, my body said I wanted to have a child. Why would it do that if I really couldn't have a baby? So I decided to go take action and, figure it out. I didn't have a partner that wanted to have a child, and all of that, wasn't really in place. So I just decided to take some steps towards having a child. I went to look into adoption. I looked into sperm donation, that type of thing, and to see what would be true for me. And I ended up pregnant within probably a year from that person telling me that I wanted to have a baby. And it was pretty incredible. I got a divorce from my husband. Like, there was like so many things that lined up to allow me to become the mother that I am today. And I think that is part of, when you think about the courage to become, I could have listened to doctors. I could have listened to, my friends who were like, you're not married. What's wrong? What are you doing? I wasn't following the traditional way to, start a family, but I knew that I was meant to be a mom. And I feel that way, that's kind of how I roll. When I think about, how I became an equus coach, I didn't have any horse experience. People were like, what are you thinking? You don't even know how to, you don't know how to be around horses. Why would you ever want to do something like that? But I knew I had a soul's calling that, the universe kept showing me horses, showing me what I was supposed to be doing. Any meditations I was doing, I kept having horses come to me, and they would come to me in wonderful ways and surprising ways and ways that I couldn't explain. But I just knew that I was supposed to do this work. So, when I was becoming a life coach, I remember finding out that the person that helped me with that kinesiology, she was a life coach. And I looked her up where she became a life coach. I found Dr. Martha Beck, she trains life coaches. I had worked with her in the corporate world, so I knew her work. I knew a lot about her, and I had done some work with Oprah Winfrey's company as well. Like, within, that whole experience was one of the highlights of my corporate career. So I was like, oh, I wonder if she still trains life coaches. So I looked it up and I was like, let me see. And what ended up happening is I saw that it was, the training was there. It was Tuesday afternoons. It was way more money than I had, budgeted to, put towards my personal development. And I was like, I have a job. Like, how am I going to do that? That just seems like a dream. So I'm just going to I shut my laptop and I was like, whatever, I'll just come back to that another time. And 5 minutes later, I got a phone call from my human resources department, and I was pretty high up. I was a senior partner in the company. So they said, come on down and want to chat. So I was like, okay, I'll come down. And they started talking about, they were restructuring. And I was like, okay, so, let's get out the organizational chart and see who we're keeping. Like, as if I was going to be the one, because I would have been the one to decide. And they were like, oh, no, we don't need your help with this. We're letting you go. I was so happy. Like, I couldn't stop smiling because I already knew what I wanted to do. And all of a sudden, and within 5 minutes of finding that program, my Tuesday afternoons suddenly were free. So I could take the training. They gave me a severance package that was paying me for the full time that this training was a year long. And so I got a full severance package. So I didn't have to work while I trained to become a life coach. And then they said, oh, and by the way, I had applied for a sabbatical. And the sabbatical was, I was so excited about it. It was 3 months long. And they were like, well, we couldn't approve it. And I was pretty mad about that because they didn't give me my sabbatical. They were like, we couldn't approve it because we knew about this reorg, but we're going to give you a check for the money for the time that you deserve to have a sabbatical. So we're just going to give you it in a lump sum. And the lump sum that they gave me was exactly the amount of money that the life coach training was. So I literally created within what, in linear time, it was 5 minutes, but I know that is way beyond something that you could explain in linear time, that these things were already in place. What you're wanting is also wanting you. I always say that because if you really tune into what you desire and who you are becoming, you will become it. because you wouldn't want it if it wasn't meant for you.
Oh my God, I love that. I literally had chills the entire time you were telling your story. Like, I still have them in the back of my neck here.
Yeah.
Crazy. And that's how the universe works, right?
Yes, it is so true. And even, when you think about I know you're going to talk about human design, but even if I think about, I'm a manifest generator, I am I'm a 4/6. So I know when I tell stories, that's what transforms people. But, I could use that against myself if I wanted to. Like, no one wants to hear my story, but actually people do want to hear my stories because
Yeah.
that's part of my human design. And so, yeah, so if you fast forward, I go into my life coach training, as you asked me about how I got to the horses. I found I'm the person that likes to research things before I do things. Even though I said yes to life coach training, I was like, I should probably maybe experience something of Martha's before I go, like, head on. And I also wanted, there's so many stories to share, but I'll stick with the horse one. So I found that one of the master coaches that was helping us in life coach training was a equus coach. So she worked with horses, and I thought that's fascinating. And I wrote in my iPhone notes, equus coaching after certification, because I don't have time to research any of that. I've got to take on regular life coach training. And so that was in October 2015. And then I forgot about it. Like, it's just buried in the thousands of notes I have in my iPhone. And I started seeing horses everywhere. I'm like, what is going on? Why do I see horses everywhere? I realized I lived in horse country. I had no idea before. I was, busy working and commuting and doing all the things. I wasn't really looking about the fact that I had farms everywhere around me. And then, I would open the newspaper and there's horses. There's like a story about them. I'm like, this is bizarre. Why? This is bugging me. So I did, as part of life coach training, a shamanic journey that is, they take you somewhere and they give you something. So, or like something meets you in the journey. And of course, a horse meets me and gives me a brass ring. And I'm
Wow.
like, this is crazy, right? And I'm just like, oh, horses, I don't understand this. And what I got in the journey was I got some words that I didn't understand. One of them was Oldenburg. And I got the sense that the horse was female, but like, how would I know? Like, I just felt that way. And so she had this beautiful star and snip, which I don't even know what that is then, but now I know what it is. It was like a marking on her forehead that was so stunning. And she was just really, really beautiful. And, she just was like, just kind of hanging out with me at my, out in nature and in my journey, which is like a visualization. If you don't know what a shamanic journey is, it's just a meditation that's more of a visualization. You see, or you intend to see, or, feel, sense where you are. And I tend to be able to see things pretty clearly when I visualize. And so you get paired with any kind of coach that's part of the teacher training. It could be a health coach, it could be, a career coach, it could be anything. I get paired with a life purpose coach, and she's like, hey, we don't really understand why this is, but I believe you are meant to be an equus coach. And I was like, that makes no sense. I don't know anything about horses.
Said that to you?
Yeah, she said, you're meant to be an equus coach. And she said, just go play with some horses. Go spend some time, see how you feel. And so I decided to, go to the Googles and see where I could be around horses, because I don't own any and I don't know anyone. So I was like, let me just see. So I Googled this place. It's called Access Equestrian. They are a adaptive horseback riding program for children with disabilities and other life challenges. And they had an application for a volunteer to work with horses. And I thought, in a million years, they're not picking me because I don't know anything about any of that. I don't know anything about horses or kids with disabilities. So I'll just apply and see what the universe has to offer me. And within an hour of my application, I get a phone call from the woman who runs the place. And she says, listen, we really need help. Could you come like right now? She's like, we're moving our farm and we need hands to like move things. And I was like, I don't know anything about horses. She's like, you don't need to touch horses. Just come help us move the tack. And I explained to her, what had happened. And I was interested in learning about horses because I think I wanted to do life coaching with horses. And she's like, I don't know what that is, but if you come right now, I will teach you whatever you need to know about horses. And she made good on that for 6 years. We worked together and she taught me everything. I mean, probably not everything because I don't ride or anything like that, but she taught me how to be safe around horses and how just to be with them. And it was amazing. And when I walked in, I went immediately over to the farm to help them move. And what happened is I opened the barn doors and the horse that is staring at me looks pretty much like the horse from my meditation, from my visualization. And I'm like, this is weird. All horses must look alike because that's weird that that horse looks pretty much like this other horse. And it turned out like, I was like, I'm not telling anybody this because they don't know me. But a few months later, I was being trained by the woman who owns the farm, and she happened to own this horse. And she was telling me that horses' markings are like human fingerprints. So no two horses have the same markings. So that horse that came to me in the meditation, that was this horse. Like there's no way it could be anything else because of that. And it turned out she was called her breed is an Oldenburg mare. And that was the word that came to me in the journey. And on top of all of that, I mean, she was female. So I was like, okay, now this woman knows me for a few months. I'm going to share this with her. And I was vulnerable. And I said, I had this visualization and I'm pretty sure Audrey called me here. And she said, oh, of course she did. Like she really believed that this horse, that she's the princess of the barn and she calls in who's supposed to be here. And what was so profound about all of this is that, so I was working there and I started to see children that were a lot like my own daughter. So my daughter had been diagnosed at the same time I was in my life coach training. She got diagnosed with some special needs. She had expressive and receptive language disorder, as an example, and some other sensory processing, a lot of different things that were really affecting how she functioned in the world. And it was very hard to be her. She had a really hard life. Nobody could understand her words. She'd talk. I was probably the only person that could decode what she was saying because I was with her probably more than most people, but it was hard. And I just really was worried about like, how is she going to move through life if she can't speak? And so what ended up happening, I don't know if you can hear me, my thing just, can you hear me again?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay. So what ended up happening is I started seeing these children and I was like, this is so interesting. The person who was running the program, she's like, I think Lucy could really benefit as being a client. And so we signed her up. She was too young when I first started, but when she was 4 years old, I was able to sign her up. And so she rode the horse once a week. And what was so profound is that she could speak like the alphabet by saying like A, J, K, B, Z, F, W. Like she couldn't say it the way in order from A to Z. And when you put her on a horse, she could say the alphabet A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way through to Z.
Wow.
And there is something about the horse's gait that allows the mind and the body to connect in a way that allowed her language to organize. So the words were there. They just were the way it was described to me by every speech therapist who tried to work with her, that, the language is in there. It just can't get pulled out in the right order. So if she was thinking about a strawberry and wanted to eat a strawberry, she could probably know exactly what she wanted to say, but the word wouldn't come. And she would get so frustrated and so angry with herself that she couldn't say it and no one understood her. And then 2 years later, we had her have a neuropsychological evaluation just to kind of see what was going on with her because we were seeing so much improvement. And they were like, we don't see any expressive or receptive language disorder anymore.
Wow.
And so what I know is that that horse didn't just call me for becoming an Equus coach. It was calling me for Lucy so that she could heal from her expressive and receptive language disorder.
Wow, that is fascinating. Now, had the doctors ever heard of that before?
So it's called hippotherapy. It is kind of, I would call it an alternative therapy. It's not something that's like a mainstream that the speech therapists don't just, go and prescribe this or anything like that. but I can say that there is a whole, school of speech therapy that is, and physical therapy and occupational therapy that is under that umbrella, I believe, of hippotherapy, where you can do all of those things on a horse. And it is very, very effective. There's kids that, have low tone, they don't have muscles in their abdominal area, and you can put them on a horse. If they're in a wheelchair, you can put them on a horse, and obviously there's professionals there holding them in place, and
Right.
their body heals because they're able to do something that they weren't able to do when they're sitting in a wheelchair. Like their muscles just change differently. So there's a lot of different things that you can do that are well beyond what my daughter had experienced, but yeah, it's a pretty profound type of thing. And they're all across the country. They're called therapeutic riding organizations. So they're all over the place. So if anybody's listening that has knows someone that could benefit from that, I think it's a really beautiful thing.
What was it called again?
Therapeutic horseback riding.
The company was Access, is that what you said?
That's just a local thing. So if you're,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I would say the national organization is called PATH, PATH, Professional Association of Therapeutic Horseback Riding.
Okay.
So if they look there, they'll find a practitioner locally.
I'll put it in the show notes too.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Wow, that is fascinating.
Yeah. So I'm so grateful for the horses, what they do with the work that I do and what they do for children. So what I'm doing is nothing like that. There's no horseback riding involved. It's more about being authentic and showing who you are.
Wow, yeah. Um, that to me kind of speaks to the soul connection between you and the horse.
Mm.
And I'm a firm believer that animals have souls that they connect with us through. I have two cats that uh, I love dearly and they love me dearly. And there's
Yeah.
definitely a soul connection there. I'm kind of just curious to see from your perspective, after meeting the horse, what was that soul connection like with you and the horse? Do you have a special bond with this horse? I mean, I imagine you do.
So it's really interesting is that particular horse I was terrified of. And so when I first started doing this work, I did not expect this, but I mentioned I had a lot of anxiety. I started I was terrified of her. She was so Oldenburg mares are gigantic. She was so big and such a force to be reckoned with, probably a reflection. But what I realized is that she was actually the one I needed to be able to feel confident around. Like I was terrified if I went, near her, what might happen. And, I was just learning how to be a person, my horsemanship skills during that time. So, there were certain horses that I was like, oh no, they're so easy. They're smaller. I like them. They're nice. She was like, hmm, she was something. And so it took me, I would say, probably almost 6 years before I would have a session with my clients with her. But when I did, it was profound. Like she was the one that was like showed me the more spiritual aspects of what the work that I do. She was the one that showed it to me. Like I had many other experiences with horses that were profound and wonderful, but they were, I would say, more, body language, that type of thing. I would get feedback that way, but when I worked with her, it was like she spoke to me and through me and to the client, and it was really a beautiful experience. And now that I've moved on from that farm, I work with 40 horses at a horse rescue called Rising Star Horse Rescue. And now I have that experience. It doesn't matter what horse I work with, it's always a really profound soul connection because I'm meant to be doing this work there. And those horses are calling in clients. And it's just really been a profound experience to co-create with them and have this beautiful business that I've created.
Wow, that is amazing. Your story is powerful.
Thank you.
I know when we met last, you helped me to reframe money as an exchange of love and honor. And that really hit me hard. And I was wondering if you wouldn't mind talking to the audience about that perspective, because I think it's a powerful perspective that helps you to look at things completely different, not just necessarily in when it has to do with money, but just being able to reframe beliefs and how it changes how we show up in business and in life.
Yeah. So I have had a dance with money myself. And, I grew up middle class, lower middle class, maybe. So, we didn't really have money for extra things. Like we, took care of the basics, but, when it came to Christmas time, and I wanted something that was like popular, the hot toy of the year. And back then it was, I'll be dating myself, but back then it was the Cabbage Patch doll.
Yep.
I
Me
don't know if you
too.
remember that. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So I really wanted a Cabbage Patch doll. I was burning for it. I didn't even really like dolls, but because maybe it was just the marketing of it, who knows? But I really wanted it. And my mom and my dad were like, listen, that thing costs a lot of money. And they couldn't do it for me. So what inspired me was to like, well, you can't do it, but I could do it. And so I decided to open up my first lemonade stand. I was like, I was very entrepreneurial as a child, and I got a paper route, and I did all these things. I started to work when I was really, really young, before you're allowed to work, but you were still allowed to have a lemonade stand and a paper route. And I would get up at the crack of dawn to deliver papers to people when I was a little girl. Like I was like very, very young. And I was raising money so that I could get the thing that I wanted. So feel like I had that, that sort of instilled in me. But also I have instilled that sometimes things don't go very well and you can't afford things. So growing up, I made a commitment to myself that I wasn't going to live like that. Like I wasn't going to always be scraping for things. Like it's not going to be what I'm about. I would like to be able to just make my own money. And my mother had another thought: never depend on a man for money. And I was like, it was the most glorious, wonderful thing she could have ever taught me. And also at some point when I had a child, did not serve me. So what I realized was that, I went to college. I paid for my own college. I got my first job in New York City, which we'd have to have a whole nother podcast on that, on how miraculous that was, because I didn't have an Ivy League education and the job that I wanted required one. And I still created it. So that's like, so I was always making my own money. I was always making a lot of money. And I made a lot of money until I, moved from becoming, being in advertising and marketing to becoming an entrepreneur. And when I became an entrepreneur, I realized, oh, I've got to ask people for money all the time versus just like once a year when it's time for my raise. Like, I had to have a money conversation. So that really had taught me a lot. Like, oh, I've got to pretend every time I talk to someone about money that it's this, that it's like that raise. And I've got to, create some courage to be able to do that and to set my rates and all that. So I did have a dance with that in the beginning. And the other thing is that my needs were always met. The person that I lived with, that was, my daughter's father, he made lots of money. So I never really my needs were met. So I didn't really need to have a business that created a lot of money because, I could just serve. So I almost accidentally created a charity in my business in the beginning, because I had lots to share and I wanted to do the work. And I was like, I'm driving a BMW. We have 3 cars and I live in, a very large house. Why would I need to charge anybody any money? And that did not serve me, because, it was business. It needed to be for profit. So when I needed to make that shift, that was, a challenge, right? Because I'm used to just serving people. And so I had to really learn about the energy of money, not just about, because it was like, it was so easy. Everything always came to me, to like, okay, now I've got to force it and create it. And I think that was the issue, was I kept thinking I've got to force it and create it versus just leaning back and allowing it to do what it used to do, which has just come to me. through my action, but I wasn't really thinking about it. It just was like, there was just money. And I think what happens when we become entrepreneurs is that we make it a huge deal, just like I did, right? I was like, oh my gosh, I have to make money now. And instead of just being like, it's just what it is, it's just energy. And what I know about energy is that if you try to force it, it doesn't flow, it gets stuck. And if you allow it, it will flow. And like, if you think about a river, you can't stop the river. You could try, maybe you can like build a big dam. That's what a lot of our subconscious blocks are. But if you just let it go, it's going to go. And that was like a profound process of thinking about money as energy. And then it became, money is not just energy, it's love. Like, everything that we can do with money, I mean, we could do anything with money. We can create it. We can, do something nefarious with it, but we can also do something really loving with it. And when I think about the kinds of clients that I work with, I'm always working with people who have profound knowledge, and they want to bring forward something that is maybe ancient, like when you think about something that's been downloaded, maybe like a human design, or any kind of thing, Equus coaching. There's like these modalities that we're using that have either been channeled by someone, or they've been around a long time, like Reiki, or it's just something that's like really profound. I've worked with people who are doing Ayurveda, things that are ancient and around for a long time. And that's where I really started to understand that this is something different. This is not about asking for a raise or asking for money, right? This is like honoring that process, honoring that school of thought, honoring that technology, whatever it is that you're that you're bringing into the world. Sometimes it's something that's completely unique and you channeled it. Sometimes it's something that has been around for ancient times. Like, I am a shamanic Reiki master teacher. Shamanism's been around since the dawn of time. So it is, it's just being able to honor that technology. So if you make your rates low or not sure about this, it's like, are you really honoring the technology? Are you honoring the system that you are bringing into the world when you're doing that? So that perspective really rocked me. And the concept of understanding that money is an exchange of honor and love, it doesn't come from me. It's channeled through, it's probably channeled through many people, but where I heard it was a healer named Emmanuel Dagger. And I read a book that he wrote, and I still am in a community where he holds space, and his money story was just like, blew my mind. Like, he grew up with nothing, and he grew up in a war zone. And when I heard his story and I see what he has created and the generosity that this man holds, I was like, oof. And he talked about the money being an exchange of honor and love. I was like, that is so profound. And it felt like truth. And it felt like truth that I needed to share with people, because, everybody can hear something, hear a truth, and then apply it to their own life. Like, I'm applying it to how I help people. I apply it to, help people understand what they are holding, the thing that they learned, the thing that they want to deliver to clients is the thing that they need to be honoring. It's not about them. It's like, separate yourself from that experience, because it's not about you. It's about the thing that you're carrying through to people.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that. And it's so profound, because I think everyone can relate, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people can relate to that story around money. But that story can be around so many different things. Our love for ourselves, our value for ourselves, and which is why I do human design, because it's profound what a difference it is in living life and learning about it from an energetic perspective. They're two completely different things. You do things completely different. And even though I know this as an energy coach, when you brought up that shift in perspective around money, I was like, how did I not see this myself? And I
Because we
think,
all have
yeah,
blind spots.
yeah. And you said, I think I had a double block there, which I would have thought I would have seen. I mean, I work a lot on myself. Most of my spare time is working on myself, or has been for the last few years.
I have
So,
a belief that every coach needs a coach because we cannot spot our own blind spots. It's
yes.
really challenging. So I always have my own coach, because if I don't, then I'm not going to be able to see my own blind spots.
Yeah.
Nobody's a hero here. We all give a hand and have a leg up because we get help.
Yeah. No, and so that was a good lesson for me.
Yeah.
Obviously, I need a coach too. And I have,
Hmm.
the coaches that I belong to, the mastermind groups and that kind of thing, but I don't have like a one-on-one coach.
Hmm.
And so that was eye-opening for me. Like, okay, this is something, the next place that you need to go to.
Yeah, I think the groups are great for certain things, and one-on-one is great for certain things. The thing you don't get when you go to a group is personalized attention.
Yeah.
You're going to get a process or a system, but you're not necessarily going to get what's appropriate for you. And, when we're just starting out coaching and building our businesses, we get attracted to the groups because we might have come from corporate and we go into entrepreneurship. It gets a little lonely. You want to be around a lot of people, but it's not necessarily the thing that you need when you are, starting out your business. You actually need someone that can look at the business in a way that you are not looking at your business. And even in the middle of your business, I feel like I work with people who are just starting out. And I also work with people who have fully functioning running businesses that just want to, scale and grow, or get even more authentic than they started out. Sometimes people are coming to, things aren't quite fitting. Like I had a woman that I work with, and everybody I work with has a personal brand, but her personal brand is a brick and mortar organization. And she wanted to bring it online because it just wasn't in alignment with the life she wanted to live. And so I was able to help her do that. And so I think that, because it was going to be more authentic for her. It was, when she built it, it was authentic for her to be in the town she was in. But when, I met her, she was like, no, 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 this isn't for me anymore. I want to be able to have more flexibility, and having a brick and mortar isn't making it that way. So you can go a lot of different ways with that. You
Yeah.
can hire people to take care of your brick and mortar, or you can just bring it online. So she chose to bring it online.
What do you think some of the signs are that somebody might be out of alignment when they're trying to market or promote themselves?
Oh, so many things. I think that what I see a lot is people that have a lot of dread, a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of negative emotion around marketing their services, and that they are experiencing maybe some behaviors like procrastination or perfectionism. Sometimes it shows up like imposter syndrome, where they feel like a fraud. They don't want to put their stuff out into the world. And sometimes it's just, I don't want to be seen. I don't want to put my picture up. I don't want to go on live. I'm afraid to public speak. Like there's a lot of different fears that are actually there's just something that isn't quite in alignment. And once you get things into alignment, you realize that you'll feel compelled to do these things. Like, so sometimes it's like, maybe it's the container, maybe your offer uh, isn't quite right. Most of the time, it's that you haven't stepped into the identity of the person who's running the business, of the entrepreneur. And that is a big thing. So when you step into that new identity, it is pretty incredible what will happen, what will line up, because you have to go first. Like you can't wait for clients to come to you for you to be ready. You've got to be ready, and then the clients will come. Like there's what's that movie? If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
You've got to build yourself up for them to come, is what I've noticed. And as soon as you are in the energy of, I'm ready to receive clients, like I call this energetically open for business. A lot of people don't notice this. They are energetically closed for business. And it's because they have the fear of success that they're not conscious of. It's their blind spot. It shows up like they do a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and then they launch an offer, but they don't really do the things that they are in alignment for them. And then they wonder why it didn't work. And I noticed that a lot of times it's because they have like I was saying with you, the double block, where they want the success, they want the clients, they say it on paper, they're like, this is good. But when they really think about it, they're like, but I don't want to commit. I don't know if I want to work with them for 6 months. What if they're not okay? What if they're like not a nice client? What if I don't like them? What if they want more than I want to give them? There's so many subconscious things and conscious things that we don't realize are affecting us. And a lot of them have to do with like, I'll be too busy. What if this is successful and I have too many clients and then I can't deliver? Or what if I can't deliver when I have one client? Like there's so many things that happen for people that cause them to not actually deliver their goal. And what I notice is that if you can get into the energy of it is done, you've delivered, you've served, you are, everything works out beautifully, then that's the reality that you see. And it's not like so simple of like, I'm just going to write these beliefs down and affirm them every day. There is subconscious things that are going on in the mind. And that's the beauty of being able to, see this and like understand it in a way that most people don't really understand it. Sometimes it's energetic, sometimes it's karmic. So in being able to release those things, because if it's a pattern that shows up in all of your areas of your life, it's probably karmic, and you're not going to see it, but I can, because I'll be able, to notice and hear the stories and see where the things are reflecting. Like it may be in a client relationship one moment, and then it's in a love relationship in another moment. Maybe it's with your kids in another moment, but you don't see the pattern. But because I work with horses and I understand herd dynamics and I understand, so it doesn't matter whether you're with the horse or not, because I understand the horse, I can see what happens in dynamics around other people's relationships. I can see where there are patterns and I can see where it's karmic. And then we go and we clear it from that level. And then your whole life looks different. Like people that have worked with me, they'll work with me for like 6 months and their life will not look anything like it did when they started. So sometimes people are like, I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of shift. But some people are like, yes, I'm ready for that kind of shift, because they want to see the difference. They want like all the work that they've been doing, leads up to sometimes, that profound experience where you're like, okay, if you're ready, we can do this. And that's the really beautiful thing, because you can't hide from a horse. Like if you're doing the work, in different ways, and you get yourself, you get to see your patterns reflected in the body language of an animal that has no judgment, no opinion on whether you should choose A or B, but they can sense your energy, and they can do it if you're in person with them, and they can do it if you're on Zoom with them. And that one blew my own mind that I could do this work with people on a Zoom call, and the horses would be speaking to the person, not me, the person that is on the Zoom. Has been really profound.
Wow, that's fascinating. And you just sort of described my journey and my realizations along the journey, because that exact thing happened to me. I didn't realize when I started this journey of entrepreneurship that I needed to become somebody before I could do that. And that's really been my biggest challenge. And that's one of the reasons why I stepped into the human design piece of it, because I wanted to understand, what does that energy within me mean? Right. And so even as a energy healer, I still don't catch my own like we talked about earlier, but I at least know what to look for. I know how certain things come through for me, because the human design tells me that. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of information in there, but this is absolutely fascinating.
Thank you.
Um, what is your favorite way to reconnect with your own soul when things feel off? Because we all go through that, right? Not every moment are we connected. As a matter of fact, 95% of everyone's life, you live out of your based out of your subconscious mind. When you start doing this work, that lessens, but we still sometimes get disconnected. So, what's your favorite way to reconnect?
So I think it's literally the thing that we did right before we clicked record.
Okay,
I love
grounded.
to ground, because I'm a person, I actually can be on this earth and I can be in the spirit realm. And I love to be connected to both and walk through the world. It's so fun. I love having the universe talk to me and ask it questions and get responses, because we live in a very responsive universe. So I love to, if things aren't feeling great, if something's going on, I will use my own techniques to ground myself and to connect myself to the earth, connect myself to the heavens, connect myself to all that is. I think that's a really easy shift. I clear my energy. I have a process that I clear my energy and I call back my energy. I call back my soul, because every experience you have with interactions with other people, you know, situations that happen in your life, a little piece of your soul sometimes can get, you know, fragmented off. So I call it back every day so that I feel whole when I'm walking through the world. And when I'm doing that, things, you know, don't go so off track. But if, you know, I forget, because everybody forgets, they don't have a reminder, you know, sometimes things can go really astray. And, you know, we can't control everything. If we could, that'd be really fun. I would love to drink that pill where I could control the world. But sometimes there's things going on in the world that can really knock your socks off. Like there's political issues, there's wars, there's things that really can get us kind of on a tangent and not in our own bodies. So, you know, when that is happening, I really manage my emotions. I have something that I teach my own clients. It's called the fear release formula, because we can walk around scared all the time. And, you know, that's probably a podcast for another time if I tell you where that came from. But I was in a glass elevator right before I became a life coach. I did not love heights. I actually was terrified of them. And the reason I was terrified is from a childhood trauma. I, you know, found myself on the second floor of my home on a roof when I was 8 years old. So I was always terrified of heights. And I decided when I became a life coach that I was going to be a coach who walked her talk. And I was like, if I am going to be asking people to do the scary thing of changing their lives, I've got to be able to get into an elevator beyond the 12th floor without having a panic attack. So I ended up going to a glass elevator. And I was like, before I become a life coach, I'm just going to get in this elevator, because I don't feel like I'll be authentic and all of those things that I wanted to be if I can't do this, which is so funny, because that's what life coach training is for, to like learn how to do these things. But I did it before I ever got into any of my classes. And the experience I had on that elevator, I was expecting it to be the Tower of Terror. And what it was so profoundly wonderful. If you've ever seen Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, when at the very end, when the glass elevator kind of takes off into the air, that's what it felt like. And it's because I had this experience where I got to the glass elevator and I was praying to my mother. I was like, Mom, she had passed away the year before. I was like, Mom, you got to help me. I got to get in this elevator. I'm stuck. I can't move my finger to press the button. I don't know what to do. And I got a man comes out of the bathroom. He's at some business conference at this hotel that I was at that had a glass elevator that soared up to the 42nd floor. And he came out of the bathroom and he saw me and he tapped me on the shoulder, came up from behind, and he said, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Nope, I'm not okay." And he said, "What's going on?" And I told him that I was trying to become a life coach and I wanted to be able to get into this glass elevator and break my fear of heights. And he said, "Do you want me to come with you?" And I was like, "Yes." And so as soon as that happened, he pushed the elevator button. We walked on to the elevator and the doors closed and we soared up 42 flights that normally would have me in a panic attack. And I was grateful. I could see beauty everywhere. It was in a city and all I could see was like trees and rivers and all the things that were beyond the city. I could see them because I was in this glass elevator going up so high. And I was so profoundly shifted that I was like, how can I be in this elevator having this experience with this man when every other time I've ever been in an elevator, especially a glass elevator, sometimes accidentally, I couldn't handle it. I was vertigo, panic attack, all these things. And so we get to the top and he says, well, what would you like to do now? And I totally should have said, let's go to lunch because there was a restaurant up there. But instead I was like, okay, I guess we should go back down. So we go back down and I asked him on the way down, I said, what made you reach out to me? I was kind of talking to myself like a crazy person. And he said, I don't know. I came out of the bathroom and I got this intuition that you needed me. And so I just asked you if you needed some help. And so I believe that it was my mother who I was praying to was just like nudging him to come and give me a little help to get on the elevator so I could do the thing I wanted to do. And so after that experience, all my other fears kind of let go. I was not afraid of sharks anymore. I was like, not afraid. I was like afraid. My poor child. I was actually ended up being afraid of dolls. That Cabbage Patch doll I had was the last doll I ever had because I watched a scary movie about some dolls. And so I wouldn't let my kid have any dolls because I just was so freaked out by them. That went away. My kid could have baby dolls. Like all these big fears that I had are melting away. So I was like, what happened in that elevator that caused me to no longer have anxiety? I don't have any big fears anymore like I used to. I found myself about a year after that experience holding a shark in my hand, like what is happening? Something is profoundly shifting. So I went to work to understand how the brain works around fear. I studied and studied and studied while becoming a life coach. And I broke down what was going on in that elevator. And that is my fear release formula. That is how I help people go from fear to love when they are shaken in their shoes. And we don't mess with true fear. Like if it's a real fear that is going to save your life, we don't mess with that. What we mess with is the false fears, the ones that tell you that you could be hurt or you could be embarrassed or whatever it is that people are
False
worried about.
evidence appearing real, right?
Yes, false evidence appearing real. Exactly. Yeah. Instead, we face everything and we rise.
Wow, that is amazing. Unbelievable. Um, I think it's very interesting how that energy transference from you to prayer to your mom and then to your mom to the gentleman. I think it's a good testament to how energy works because it's not by chance. Like things like that don't happen by chance. There's a higher power working behind the scenes, and all of it
Yeah.
has to do with our energy.
Yeah. And energy doesn't get destroyed. So even if somebody's physical body is no longer with us,
Yeah.
their energy is still here. And that is the most profound thing that I understood when my mom passed away, that she didn't leave me. She was always there. And I learned how to grieve when my mom passed away because I converted to a religion that does grief really well. And they taught me how to grieve. So I wasn't so clogged up with grief around her. By the time this had happened, I was already still talking with her and, feeling her presence and, and understanding as I was learning about energy, I was like, oh, it's never destroyed. So she's still here. She just doesn't have a physical body. And,
Yeah.
her soul is still present. So I can still be with her. And that information helped me so much because I lost my mother when my daughter was a baby. She needed a grandma and I needed somebody to help me
Yeah.
learn about how to be a mother. And so I could have really had an experience where that was a profound grief. And some of my family members still to this day can't release that grief, because they are stuck in like, her physical body needs to be here. So that's why I think profound insights can be had and healing can be had when you understand energy. So I'm
Yeah.
really happy that you are doing that kind of work as well to bring that information to people that energetics is a whole
Yeah.
other ballgame.
And the reason I got into this is because I lost both of my parents in a span of 8 months and I couldn't emotionally handle it. I needed to know what happened, where are they? And so that's how I ended up finding human design and getting involved in energy work. So it's fascinating how it all comes full circle.
Yeah.
Do you have any books that supported you on the journey that you might want to recommend to my audience?
I mean, so many.
I know.
I'm a book person. One of the things I love to do is coaching in book clubs because I think that there are so many lessons to be learned. Whew, Let's see. So I think the first book that, like, if somebody's just beginning their journey, the first book that I read that just profoundly shifted my life was The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Okay. I haven't read
And
that.
if you're if you want to become authentic, follow those four agreements. They are profound, they're simple, and they're profound. So I would definitely recommend that book.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. And what is one piece of advice that you end up giving to everyone that you talk to?
One piece of advice I give everyone. I don't know if I kind of customize my advice for people.
Okay.
And I don't really give advice. I feel like the advice really comes from it within. I just give them the opportunity to deeply listen to what's going on inside of them. But
I
in terms of, things that I find myself saying a lot is what you're wanting is also wanting you. That's a really good one. And yeah, there's nothing more interesting to a horse than grass, other than the truth. When they feel the truth, they will come snuggle up to that. And that is when you're being completely authentic. And yeah, so I actually would love to share a quote from the Sufi poet Rumi. It's really, I think, appropriate for what we've been talking about. Rumi says, "When I run after what I think I want, my days are a furnace of distress and anxiety. If I sit in my own place of patience, what I need flows to me and without any pain. From this, I understand that what I want also wants me, is looking for me and attracting me. There is a great secret in this for anyone who can grasp it."
Thank you so much for being here, Jen. This has been amazing. The whole time that we've been talking, I've had chills from the back of my neck all the way down. So this has been a amazing, profound shift, even for me again.
Yeah.
The courage to become your true self really starts with letting go of the pressure and choosing authenticity. And so I'd like to encourage my audience to let this be your permission to just be you. And I would love it if you would show Jen some love by sprinkling some love on the like button. I'd be honored if you would share it. I'm so grateful that you are here today. If this resonated with you, please share what you got out of it with your friends. Please share this with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. I'm so grateful to each and every one of you. Thank you for being here, and I will catch you in the next episode.